So I'm changing my hydraulic lines, and this is for reference. Top line out of the 4 goes to the top left when you're looking at it from the front. The next line goes down to the 3rd one here. Then below the first line goes down to the 2nd hose here. And then the bottom one is the bottom right, this one here. So top left is the top hose, top right is the 3rd hose down, bottom left is the 2nd hose, bottom right is the bottom hose, the bottom of the 4. There we go. All right, so what have I been doing today? I changed a whole bunch of hydraulic lines on my loader today. Not really what I wanted to do. I did have a couple of them that were pretty bad. Let me show you. So this is the main one that was leaking. This is for, I don't know, this would be one of the main lift cylinders. This one was leaking. You can see that the casing was pretty bad on it, been leaking out of the, right behind this joint for a long time. And then these were the main lines for the bucket coming off of the cylinder, I think for the retract function. No, for the lift function of the main boom arm actually, not the bucket. But both of these were cracked, and again, I know just because the casing's cracked doesn't mean it's leaking, but it's just a matter of time until it starts leaking. So I spent about 200 bucks, maybe a little bit more by the time it was all said and done, on I think 8 or 9 hydraulic hoses. I replaced all the main bucket cylinder lines, and I replaced all the lines up here for the controls and the return line. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hoses. Actually 8, because one of the hoses Hugh had actually replaced on it when he owned this loader. And I'm glad I looked down here because I almost just forgot to put the suction hose back on. That would have been a catastrophe. I would have had fluid pouring all over the ground, brand new hydraulic fluid. And just in case you're wondering, this time around I'm not running ATF in it. I'm actually putting just universal tractor hydraulic fluid in it from Tractor Supply, mainly because it was on sale. ATF was like 35 bucks for 2 gallons. This stuff was like 21. So to save a fair amount of money, knowing all the work that I've just put into this, yes, I'm using hydraulic fluid. And you can use either. I think ATF's a lot thinner than regular hydraulic fluid is, so when it's cold out, it doesn't make the pump whine as much, but it is what it is. Now what I did, this is my return line from my control valve back into the top of the tank. I always take this guy off the control valve so I can fill this, because then it breathes better, and you can just basically pour this stuff in. I mean, it's about time my loader got some loving. I've had this thing for, I don't know, 2.5 years now. I think that's full. I think that's over full. I think that's full right to here, which is too much. But haven't started it yet, so it's bound to have some air bubbles in all the hoses. So what I'm gonna do is put this line back on and then start the tractor up and see how low that fluid goes when I do that. So where's my pipe wrench? Hydraulic line wrench, specially fitted just for this one size hose, you know, because only the best for this loader. So now I have almost $1,000 in this loader. Between all the fluid changes I've done, all the hoses I've had to replace and everything else. I have just about $1,000 into it, which is still really good considering most people can't find them at all. And I have this one, and I still have the Craftsman loader that I do want to get back to at some point in time. So let's clear all the junk off of this thing and start it up and see how she works. Got tools everywhere. Got my truck keys, which need to go back in my pocket. And let's start it up and see how she rolls. Hopefully it won't spew too much, but a little bit of choke on this guy. Out of gear. there you have it. So what's happening here with all this bubbling stuff, it's actually self-bleeding because I put too much fluid in, or just enough. You know, too much is just enough. But I put so much fluid in there that as the system heats up and that stuff, you know, just kind of expands in there, it wants to come squirting out of them little holes because it takes up more room than it does when it's cold in the system. So as the system warms up, it's going to kind of self-bleed and self-clearance itself out of there. So that'll happen for a few times when I run it. But for now, new line, new line, new line, new line, new line. New lines down in there, new lines over there. I just got to replace the bucket ones. And this whole mess, this bracket is actually supposed to be back a little more. These controls are supposed to be straight out. And I might be able to do that now because all 4 of these lines got replaced with 24-inch lines, and then, you know, another 3 inches of nipples on top of that. So I'm going to loosen up this guy here and try to tilt the controls back a little bit so I got more room for these hoses, because now those hoses do not flex and twist like the old ones do. They're just kind of fixed solid on there. They have swivels so I can put them on and take them off easier, but they don't actually spin around on the fittings like they used to.